I was 22, fresh out of college, clutching a degree that felt like my golden ticket. The corporate world was supposed to be my playground, but on my first day at Zenith Corp, I was slapped with reality. The towering glass building loomed over me, its sleek design screaming power. I walked in, my heels clicking nervously on the marble floor, resume tucked under my arm. They sent me to the 14th floor, where I was greeted by Margaret, the department head. She barely looked up from her desk, her eyes scanning me like I was a minor inconvenience. "You're the intern," she said, not a question, just a statement dripping with dismissal. I nodded, forcing a smile, my dreams of making an impact already wobbling. My desk was a corner cubicle, barely big enough for my laptop. I was handed a stack of papers to file, no explanation, no welcome. The office buzzed with energy, but I felt invisible. Margaret's voice carried over the hum, barking orders to everyone but me. I told myself it was just the first day. I'd prove myself. I had to. The weeks blurred into a monotony of coffee runs and photocopies. I was just the intern to everyone, especially Margaret. She'd call me over to fix her printer or grab her lunch, her tone sharp, like I was wasting her time by existing. I'd graduated top of my class, but here I was nobody. I'd stay late, organizing files nobody else bothered with, hoping someone would notice. They didn't. The other employees barely acknowledged me unless they needed something menial. I started doubting myself, wondering if I'd overestimated my potential. But deep down, a fire burned. I wasn't here to be invisible. I spent my nights studying Zenith's projects, memorizing their strategies, their clients. I'd sneak glances at Margaret's presentations, noting her mistakes. I knew I could do better. I just needed a chance. Every morning, I'd walk into that office, chin up, ready to fight for it. One day, I overheard Margaret talking about a major client pitch. Zenith was vying for a multi-million-dollar contract, and the pressure was on. She was presenting to the board in 2 weeks, and her team was scrambling. I wasn't invited to those meetings, of course, just the intern. But I listened from my corner, catching fragments of their strategy. It was weak, full of generic buzzwords and recycled ideas. I'd seen better pitches in my college case studies. I started sketching my own ideas during lunch breaks, hiding my notebook when anyone passed by. I mapped out a bold approach, tailored to the client's needs, backed by data I'd pulled from public records. It was risky, but I felt alive creating it. I imagined walking into that boardroom, laying out my plan, seeing their jaws drop. The fantasy kept me going through another stack of meaningless tasks. Margaret's attitude grew worse as the pitch deadline loomed. She'd snap at me for the smallest things: too much sugar in her coffee, a file slightly out of place. I swallowed my pride, but it burned. I knew she was stressed, but I wasn't her punching bag. One afternoon, she left her laptop open during a break, and I saw her draft presentation. It was a mess, disjointed slides, no clear narrative. I could fix it. I wanted to. But who was I? Just the intern. I went home that night and rewrote her entire pitch, slide by slide, on my own laptop. I added visuals, sharpened the messaging, and included a financial projection that made the case undeniable. It was the kind of work I dreamed of doing. I saved it, unsure if I'd ever show it to anyone. The thought of Margaret's sneer stopped me cold. The next day, I was tasked with setting up the boardroom for a practice run. I arranged the projector, tested the slides, and made sure every chair was perfectly aligned. Margaret didn't even thank me. She just waved me out like I was clutter. As I left, I heard her team fumbling through their rehearsal, tripping over weak points I'd already solved in my version. I lingered outside the door, my heart pounding. I could walk in, hand them my pitch, change everything. But fear glued my feet to the floor. What if they laughed? What if they fired me? I went back to my cubicle, my notebook burning a hole in my bag. I told myself to wait, to be patient. But patience was starting to feel like surrender. I wasn't sure how much longer I could take it. A week before the big pitch, disaster struck. Margaret's lead analyst quit, leaving a gap in the team. She was furious, storming around the office, blaming everyone but herself. I saw my opening. During a rare moment when she wasn't barking orders, I approached her desk. My voice shook as I offered to help with the pitch. She looked at me like I'd suggested she wear flip-flops to the boardroom. You? She scoffed. You're just the intern. The words stung, but I stood my ground. I mentioned I'd studied the client's portfolio, had some ideas. She rolled her eyes but told me to email her something if I insisted. I went home and polished my pitch, heart racing. This was it. I sent it to her at midnight, my hands trembling as I hit send. The next morning, Margaret called me to her office. I braced for rejection, but she didn't mention my email. Instead, she handed me a list of errands, dry cleaning, coffee, the usual. I was crushed. Had she even read it? I spent the day running her chores, my hope fading. But that evening, I saw her laptop open again, and there it was, my pitch, loaded into her presentation software. She hadn't said a word, but she was using it. My ideas, my words, my strategy. I should have been thrilled, but instead, I felt sick. She was going to take credit for it. I stood there, staring at the screen, my fists clenched. I wasn't just the intern. I was done being invisible. The day of the pitch arrived, and the office was electric with tension. I was tasked with setting up the boardroom again, arranging water bottles, adjusting the lighting. Margaret swept in, her confidence radiating, my pitch loaded on her laptop. I watched from the back as she began, delivering my words with her usual polish. The board leaned forward, nodding, impressed. My stomach churned. Every slide, every statistic, it was mine. But no one knew. I wanted to scream, to claim it, but I stayed silent, gripping my notepad. The room erupted in applause when she finished. The client's representative shook her hand, calling it brilliant. I felt like I'd been erased. I slipped out before anyone could see my face. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the pitch in my head, Margaret's smug smile burning into me. I'd let her steal my work. I'd let her call me just the intern and make it true. But something shifted in me. I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. I started researching Zenith's structure, its board members, its policies. I found out the client contract wasn't finalized yet. They wanted a follow-up meeting. I had another chance. I spent the weekend drafting a new proposal, even sharper than the first, tailored to the client's feedback from the pitch. I wasn't going to let Margaret bury me again. I'd make sure the right people saw it this time. On Monday, I requested a meeting with the VP, Mr. Callahan. It was a bold move. Interns didn't just waltz into the VP's office. His assistant raised an eyebrow but scheduled me for a brief slot. I spent the night preparing, practicing my pitch, refining every word. I wasn't just fighting for credit, I was fighting for my place here. When the meeting came, I walked in with my head high, my proposal printed and bound. Mr. Callahan looked surprised but let me speak. I laid out my new pitch, explained how I'd written the original one Margaret presented. His eyes narrowed, but he listened. When I finished, he leaned back, silent for a moment. Then he said, "We need to tee the confrontation." Happened the next day. Mr. Callahan called Margaret and me into his office. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. Margaret looked annoyed, like I was wasting her time again. Mr. Callahan held up my proposal, asking her directly if she'd written the original pitch. She hesitated, then claimed it was a team effort. I couldn't stay quiet. I spoke up, detailing every slide, every data point, every hour I'd spent. Margaret's face turned red, her excuses crumbling. I didn't yell or cry. I just laid out the truth, calm and clear. Mr. Callahan listened, his expression unreadable. He thanked us both and dismissed us. I left the room, my legs shaking, unsure if I just ended my career or started it. The next few days were torture. Margaret avoided me, her glares icy when we crossed paths. The office buzzed with whispers. Word had spread. Some colleagues gave me nods of respect, others avoided my eyes. I kept my head down, focusing on my tasks, but I felt the weight of every stare. Then, an email came from Mr. Callahan. He wanted me in the follow-up meeting with the client. Not Margaret, me. I read it 3 times to be sure it wasn't a mistake. I was to present my new proposal, alone. My stomach flipped with nerves and excitement. This was my shot, not just to prove myself, but to rewrite my story at Zenith. I spent every waking hour preparing. The morning of the client meeting, I dressed sharper than ever, my confidence fragile but growing. The boardroom felt different this time. I wasn't setting up chairs, I was the one presenting. The client team arrived, along with Mr. Callahan and a few board members. I took a deep breath and started. My voice was steady, my slides flawless. I walked them through the proposal, addressing their feedback, showing them I'd listened. The client's lead leaned forward, asking sharp questions I answered with ease. I could feel the room shifting, the board watching me with new eyes. When I finished, there was a beat of silence, then applause. Real applause, for me. After the meeting, the client's representative pulled me aside. She said my pitch was one of the best she'd seen in years. She didn't know I was an intern. She assumed I was a rising star. I didn't correct her. Mr. Callahan joined us, his smile rare but genuine. He told me the client was signing the contract, thanks to my work. I felt like I was floating. Back at the office, words spread fast. Colleagues who'd ignored me now congratulated me, their tones tinged with surprise. Margaret was nowhere to be seen. I heard later she'd been reassigned to a smaller project. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I'd taken her chair, metaphorically, and it felt good. Zenith offered me a full-time role the next week. Not an internship, a real position, with a desk that wasn't in a corner. I accepted, of course, but I negotiated my terms. I wasn't just grateful. I knew my worth now. My new role involved leading a small team on a new client project. I was terrified but ready. I spent my first week restructuring the team's workflow, using what I'd learned from months of watching and waiting. My colleagues listened, some reluctantly, but they followed. I wasn't just the intern anymore. I was someone they had to respect. Every meeting, every decision, felt like a step toward something bigger. Margaret never apologized, but I didn't expect her to. She'd underestimated me, and that was her mistake. I saw her occasionally, her confidence dimmed, her influence waning. I didn't wish her ill. I was too focused on my own path. I started mentoring new interns, making sure they were never invisible. I gave them real tasks, real responsibilities. I wanted them to know they could take the chair too, if they fought for it. The office culture shifted slightly, my story rippling through. People started questioning who got credit, who did the real work. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Months later, I was invited to speak at a company-wide conference. Me, the former intern, addressing hundreds of employees. I stood on that stage, my voice clear, my story raw. I talked about being underestimated, about fighting for my place. I didn't mention Margaret by name, but everyone knew. The applause was deafening, and for the first time, I felt like I belonged. Afterward, interns approached me, wide-eyed, asking for advice. I told them to study, to speak up, to never let anyone call them just anything. I saw myself in their eager faces, and it fueled me. I was building something, not just for me, but for them. The client contract I'd secured became a cornerstone of Zenith's growth that year. My name was tied to it, my reputation growing. I was invited to strategy meetings, my ideas shaping major decisions. I wasn't always right, but I was always heard. I learned to navigate the corporate game, to balance ambition with tact. I made mistakes, but I owned them, learned from them. My team respected me, not because I demanded it, but because I earned it. I was no longer invisible, I was a force. The glass building that once intimidated me now felt like home. I walked its halls with purpose, my heels clicking with confidence. Alk to Margaret. Looking back, I realized Margaret's dismissal had been a gift. It lit a fire in me, pushed me to prove her wrong. I didn't just take her chair, I built my own. I wasn't chasing her shadow anymore, I was casting my own. Zenith was changing, and I was part of that change. I started advocating for more transparency, for giving credit where it was due. The board listened, implementing small but meaningful policies. I wasn't a revolutionary, but I was making a dent. Every late night, every coffee run, every moment I'd felt small, it all led to this. I was exactly where I was meant to be. A year after that first pitch, I was promoted again. I had my own office now, a view of the city skyline. It wasn't about the space, it was about what it represented. I'd gone from just the intern to someone who shaped Zenith's future. I kept my old notebook, the one with my first pitch, as a reminder. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. It was proof I'd always had it in me. I still worked late, but now it was by choice, not necessity. I was building something bigger than myself, something lasting. And I knew, deep down, this was only the beginning. The corporate world wasn't what I'd imagined at 22, but it was better. It was real, messy, and full of opportunity if you fought for it. I learned to spot the Margarets early, the ones who try to dim your light to brighten their own. I didn't let them. I built alliances, found mentors who saw my potential. Mr. Callahan became one, guiding me through the politics of the C-suite. I wasn't perfect, but I was learning. Every challenge was a chance to grow, to sharpen my edge. I started taking on riskier projects, ones that scared me. They paid off, not always in success, but in respect. I was becoming someone people looked to, not past. The interns I mentored started shining too. One, a quiet kid named Alex, reminded me of myself. He had ideas but no voice, yet. I gave him a project, let him run with it. When he presented it, the room listened. I saw his confidence bloom, and it felt like my own victory. I wasn't just climbing, I was lifting others with me. Zenith's culture was shifting, slowly but surely. People talked about the intern who took the chair, like it was legend. I didn't mind. It was a reminder of how far I'd come. I kept pushing, kept proving that titles didn't define you, work did. The client from that first pitch became a regular partner. They requested me specifically for their next project. It was a vote of confidence that echoed through the company. I led a team of 5, all older than me, all skeptical at first. I won them over with results, not charm. We delivered ahead of schedule, under budget. The client threw a dinner to celebrate, and I was at the head of the table. I didn't gloat, but I savored it. Margaret was a distant memory now, a footnote in my story. I'd outgrown her shadow, built my own legacy. The corporate game was tough, but I was tougher. I started getting noticed outside Zenith. Invitations to industry panels, articles mentioning my name. I was still young, still learning, but I was a player now. I used my platform to talk about fairness, about giving new talent a chance. I didn't sugarcoat it. The corporate world could be brutal. But I told them it was worth it. Every late night, every rejection, every moment of doubt, it all built you. I was living proof. I kept my old intern badge in my desk drawer, a reminder of where I started. It grounded me, kept me hungry. I wasn't done climbing. 2 years in, I was leading a department. Not Margaret's old one. Mine was new, created to handle Zenith's expanding client base. I shaped it from the ground up, hired my own team. I made sure no one felt like just anything. We were a unit, collaborative, driven. Our results spoke for themselves. Record growth, happy clients. The board took notice, and so did competitors. Headhunters started calling, offering bigger roles elsewhere. I listened but stayed. Zenith was where I'd fought for my place, where I'd proved myself. I wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. I saw Margaret one last time, at a company event. She was quieter now, her edges softened. She approached me, offered a half-hearted congratulations. I nodded, polite but distant. I didn't need her validation anymore. I'd moved past her, past the intern label, past the doubts. I was building something bigger, something she couldn't touch. The event was a celebration of Zenith's growth, and my department's work was front and center. I gave a speech, short but sharp, about resilience and ownership. The room listened. I wasn't just the intern anymore. I was the future. The corporate world taught me hard lessons, but the hardest was about myself. I doubted my worth, let others define me. Never again. I learned to trust my instincts, to fight for my ideas. I wasn't perfect, but I was relentless. Every setback was a setup for something bigger. I kept my notebook, my pitches, my late-night ideas. They were my arsenal. I shared them with my team, encouraged them to build their own. We were a force, not because we were flawless, but because we showed up. Every day, every project, every chance. Looking back, I realized how close I'd come to giving up. That first year, those coffee runs, Margaret's sneers, they almost broke me. But they didn't. They forged me. I took the chair not because it was given, but because I earned it. I wasn't special. I was stubborn. Anyone could do it with enough grit. I told that to every intern, every new hire. Don't wait for permission. Take it. The corporate world didn't owe you anything, but it rewarded those who demanded their place. I was proof, and I wanted others to be too. Now, 3 years from that first day, I'm not done. The chair I took? It's just a start. I'm aiming higher, executive level, maybe my own company one day. I'm still learning, still fighting, still proving. The corporate world is a battlefield, but I'm armed now. I know my worth, my voice, my power. I don't need anyone's approval to take what's mine. I mentor, I lead, I build. I'm not just the intern anymore. I'm the one who changes things. And I'm just getting started. The skyline outside my office window? It's not just a view, it's a promise. So here I am, telling you my story, not to brag, but to show what's possible. I was invisible once, dismissed, underestimated. I took the chair anyway. You can too. Whatever your battlefield, corporate or otherwise, don't let anyone call you just anything. Fight for your place, your voice, your legacy. It's not easy, but it's worth it. I'm living proof. And I'll keep proving it every single day. Thanks for listening to my story. If you loved it, please subscribe to our channel for more stories of grit and triumph. Hit that button, join the community, and let's keep pushing forward together.